Hey, welcome to Triple C, Candace's College Cooking, where I teach you, the 20-something crowd, the basics and hacks of cooking, as well as how to impress your friends, your roommates, and maybe even a date with restaurant-worthy creations. Today, I am so excited because we're finally gonna cook something. I'm gonna teach you all about sauce, hence the title, Let's Get Saucy, but more specifically, spaghetti sauce. You may be thinking, can't I just buy Ragu or Prego? Of course the answer is yes. But if you invest just a sliver of time and in ingredients which are actually inexpensive and easy to come by, you will never buy Ragu or Prego again. Trust me, this sauce is going to change your world. Get ready for the compliments to flow. All right, let's start with the ingredients. Specifically, we need a cup of chopped onions. We need 3 to 4 cloves of garlic that are chopped. I'm going to show you how to chop a clove of garlic. I already showed you how to chop onions on the Humble Onion episode. So here's what you do. You basically whack the clove of garlic so you can peel it. Take off the outer skin. Take off this little root end. And give it another whack, and then give it some chopping, okay? And if you give it a good whack, that way the garlic is gonna break down a little easier, make it easier to chop. Okay, I'm just gonna throw this in my garlic, in with my other garlic that I've already chopped. Okie dokie. Start with a big pan to cook this in. I'd suggest whatever your largest pot is. Depending on how many pots you have, this may pose a problem when it's time to actually cook the pasta, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. All right, we're gonna turn on the heat. You wanna get your pot going. All right, now you're gonna add a half a cup of olive oil. I know that sounds like a lot of olive oil, but trust me, it's worth it. You're gonna need it to keep the tomatoes from burning. All right, half a cup of olive oil, and then we're gonna let this come up to temp just slightly. To the olive oil, once it's warm, we're gonna add a cup of chopped onions. And again, I showed you how to chop onions. You want them all kind of uniform. And of course, you know, I'm using a sweet yellow onion. And honestly, you know, you don't really need to measure this. You're basically gonna use an onion. Most onions are reasonably uniform size. If you have a little too much onion, it's no big deal. This is not like baking where everything has to be absolutely precise. All right. To my onion, I'm gonna throw in just a splash of salt. You want to add salt to your onions when they're starting to cook so that they'll start to sweat more quickly. All right, you're gonna give this probably 3 to 4 minutes, and then we're going to add our garlic. All right, you only want to add the garlic after your onions have started to sweat and to simmer. Again, probably 3 to 4 minutes before you add the garlic. And once we add the garlic, we're only gonna let it saute for about 30 seconds to a minute. All right? You can kind of hear that sizzling going. And I have it on medium-high heat to get the onions going. All right, to this I'm going to add, again, somewhere between 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, depending on the size of your garlic. But just like the onions, if you got a little too much garlic, it's not gonna hurt anything. If you have it too little of garlic, maybe it'll hurt a little, but nothing that's going to be, shall we say, life-threatening. All right, once we have the onions and the garlic in the pot and they're sauteed, they've come up to temp, now we're gonna add the seasonings and the spices. All right, so we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of kosher salt. I know it sounds like a lot, but we're putting a lot of tomatoes in this. All right, 1, 2. We're going to add a half a teaspoon of pepper. 3 teaspoons of basil. This is dry basil. We're going to add a teaspoon of fennel seed. And remember, in my Spice Island recipe, I told you you're going to have fennel seed for sauce. It just does not taste the same if you don't have fennel seed. So go ahead and invest your, I don't know, I think it was $4.40. And this will last you quite a while, as you can see. And then we're going to put in 4 tablespoons of sugar. Now, I know this sounds like a lot of sugar, but trust me, the acid in the tomatoes require this much sugar. It will help cut the acidity of the tomatoes. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Alternatively, you could use baking soda. I know you're like, whoa, that's a little too much information. I don't know what to do with that. But if you were gonna use baking soda, I'd probably use a teaspoon, maybe 2 teaspoons instead of the 4 tablespoons of sugar. And that will also help to offset the acid that's in the tomatoes. All right, once you have all of your spices and seasonings in, give it a stir. All right, now we're gonna add the tomatoes. Now let me show you a hack on the tomatoes. You want whole peeled tomatoes. Okay, this is like $1.60 at Walmart. And open the can and then drain the liquid into our sauce, our pan, shall we say. I'm gonna turn the heat down just slightly now that everything's, pretty well put together. Okay, so then I have this can of tomatoes. Now, take a scissors, and we're literally just going to cut the tomatoes in the can. This is gonna help them to break down a whole lot easier, but you still get all of the flavor and all of the seeds and everything, all the goodness, if you will, in these canned tomatoes. All right, so those are well chopped. Now I'm gonna throw that into the pan. Let me do the same thing with my other can of tomatoes. And by the way, when you are cutting these tomatoes with the scissors, make sure and get deep down into the can so you don't have any little residual ones that don't get cut. Okie dokie. Into the can, into the pot with you. No big deal, you can give them a little snip when they're in the pot as well. Okay, now we're gonna add a 12-ounce can of tomato paste. Many times in the store you'll see these in 6-ounce containers. That's fine, you can buy a 6-ounce container. I just use it, it's easier for me to buy the 12-ounce can as opposed to multiple 6-ounce cans. Now, how do you get tomato paste out of the can? I used to cut the this top off and then this top off with the can opener, but the manufacturers changed the way the can is done at the bottom and you can't use it in the can opener easily. So now just use a simple butter knife. Take it and swirl that, and you'll see it'll take you probably a couple of rotations to get all that good tomato paste out of the can. Okay, now let's give the sauce a stir, and we're gonna bring this to a boil. All right, shouldn't take too terribly long, maybe 5 minutes for it to come up to temperature. While it's doing that, we are going to add one more ingredient. Now, if you are a legal age to consume alcohol or to purchase alcohol, my suggestion is you add a cup of red wine. If you're not, add a cup of water. But if you're also like, why in God's green country would I waste my good red wine on a sauce? That's fine too. Just use the water. And when you grow up or get older, you're probably going to enjoy having the red wine in. Let me grab my red wine. And as I said, I'm going to put a cup of red wine. Just use the same half cup container that I used for the olive oil. All right, and as I said, you're gonna bring this to a boil, and then you're gonna turn it down to a simmer, and you're gonna simmer it for 2 hours, 3 hours. Now, one other hack, if it's 30 minutes before your date is showing up, you can substitute crushed tomatoes instead of the whole peeled tomatoes. Just reduce the amount of paste that you use to 6 ounces instead of the 12 ounces that we used. And just use your judgment on whether or not to add the water, because you might not need it with that situation. So I typically will bring this to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, cover it, but don't cover it all the way. You need to check on it at about every 20 minutes, give it a stir, make sure it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. And trust me, like I said, this sauce is gonna change your life. Get ready for the compliments to flow. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share on social, and like. I hope you enjoyed Triple C's saucy, Let's Get Saucy episode, and come back for another episode in the near future. Thanks so much. Have a great day.